Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining us. I've got Robert Creo. He is the Arbitrator, Mediator, and Educator for the Happy Effect Lawyer. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, give us some background on your company, and then I'll dive right into the talking points.
Yes, I have been a lawyer for over 40 years and have been generally content and happy in my practice. And I have moved over to the last few years studying and researching the intersection of lawyer competency and contentment and engagement. As you may be aware, there are many, many lawyers who are dissatisfied with what they do, and there are many issues with lawyers involving depression, substance abuse, and stress of the profession.
Yes, I agree with you. What are you doing about that? How are you working with these people to get them to the next stage of their life where there's competency and contentment?
I've identified, as other people who research happiness, what I believe are the core factors and dynamics in how to be happy at work. I believe that the lawyers, like many professions, focus on work-life balance. And that's important, but implicit in that is the concept that you don't necessarily have to be content or happy and passionate or engaged in what you're doing. So what I'm focusing on is how do lawyers get sufficient engagement, contentment, and satisfaction out of their daily tasks. And much of it is an intersection, really, of attitude and environment and culture. So I've created a number of online courses, and I'm going out now into the marketplace, particularly focusing on millennial lawyers and the soft skills necessary so that they can be more content and understanding on how to structure their day and their work. And much of what we're doing is applicable to other professions, but obviously I'm focusing on some of the unique aspects of lawyering.
Do you find that millennial lawyers are more concerned about their personal happiness than other generations that came before them? Is it a bigger deal with them?
I think they articulated it more, and I think that millennials want to be mentored and not managed. And I believe there's different expectations, and we live in a different environment. Now everybody has a smartphone, and the whole concept of work has changed on multiple levels. One, we're more of a gig economy and things are in more bit pieces, and the overload of information, the availability of information. And lawyers really trade in stock as information. So it is different now than when I started before there was a fax machine.
I agree with you. In my life, there's overlaps of whether happiness increases because of higher compensation or there are other things that really are fulfilling. And I think that's the core of what you're driving to. It's not, don't just make more money and think that that's going to fix everything. There's other things you have to work with. Am I connecting the dots on what you're doing with this?
Yes, the studies have all shown across professions that once you reach a certain level of compensation, the increased compensation doesn't bring additional happiness. And interestingly enough, those levels of compensation are generally somewhere between $75,000 and $125,000, depending on the number of people in your family and where you're living, et cetera, which most lawyers easily reach. So the content of what you're doing, the ability to have some meaning and purpose in it, and it doesn't mean meaning in the sense that you're going to change the world, but that what you do has an impact upon real people. And that's an insight that I've been working with and trying to make lawyers understand that even the most mundane tasks are part of a greater whole.
Let's drill down into the work-life balance. I wanted to understand how this evolves and then how it manifests with the people that you're working with.
The work-life balance, I believe, is a false duality. You cannot be have your peak performance and be your best at work if you're focused on the idea of while I'm at work, I'm really not living, and when I'm outside of work and I'm balanced, that I am living. So the concept of work-life balance implies that somehow that the work need not be as enriching. I find that to be the contrary, particularly in the age of smartphones where everybody is wired together and almost working all the time, or at least accessible to work all the time. So what you do while you're at work, happy at work, is really my focus.
What are some of the key things that you bring out to the people that engage with you to get a better life?
First is autonomy. What the studies have shown is the more independence and the more autonomy that people have, generally the more tied to their work. Now, the contrary or tension is between also what people need to be happy at work and in life is connection and support and relationships. So we have a unique tension between autonomy and independence and the need to affiliate and connect. The other aspects that we find is, as I indicated, a sense of meaningfulness of your work, that the particular task that you're doing is furthering something bigger than yourself, or at least meeting the interests of the clients, or it's just good work, it's good craftsmanship, tradecraft, I think is perhaps a better word. And then the lawyers who are most successful and happy are engaged in the profession and the community, that connectedness. They believe in perpetual learning. They believe in studying and understanding and mastering their craft.
Okay, I get the point. How do people engage with you? I mean, are they finding you on your website? Are you going to events? Are you speaking lectures? How do people find out about you? I mean, aside from today's interview.
Yeah, all of those things. And my model that I'm pushing the most is really a hybrid model, which is in-person workshops and facilitation to explain the concepts and to make people understand that contentment is actually something you can learn. And it has to do with your attitudes and your habits. It's a marrying of attitude and habit. And in my model, I'm relying heavily on online courses to supplement that, because I recognize the millennials in particular like to get their information from screens. They don't really necessarily want to engage the way my generation might have in a classroom. So it's a combination, and I'm feeding the information in bite-sized pieces. So I'm taping 1 or 2 or 3 minute videos that they can look at on narrow points, having assessments and things they can do online. And they could take an online course. I call it my Contentment and Competency Program. It's very extensive, will take a number of months. What I believe as we move into this marketplace and are starting to progress is it's going to be a combination that either myself or somebody in a law firm will have to facilitate and monitor that and to mentor that and have once monthly or twice monthly meetings to monitor the progress. And obviously I can monitor the progress online through our surveys and exams. And my courses have exams. People have to pass them and understand them. But it is really the understanding of attitudes and habits, how they meld together with aptitude and agility to really transform how you approach your work.
Tell me about this immersive program. I would like to understand more about that.
So I'm running one in Pittsburgh. What it is, we start with a 3-hour session, and then they do online work. It starts with the self-assessment of not only their contentment, but how they perceive their abilities. And we break the core competencies into 5 areas. One is attitude, the second is ability, the Third is affiliation, that connection piece. The fourth is autonomy and accountability, because with autonomy comes accountability. And the fifth is what I would really call the culmination of that, the achievement, the actualization, the leadership, how it all comes together. These are not rigid categories where it's a holistic approach. And then they take a course online for a month in each of those 5 areas. It take them about a month, 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And then they come back to my workshop, and I work with them to help them understand and to create the habits that are going to work with them, for them. And these habits are things that have been developed by many other people in other contexts. And there's tremendous amount of research on happiness in the workplace. So I've chosen aspects of that and modeled it for lawyers.
What's the price? What's the cost of these? Because you've got online workshops, on-site workshops, and immersive programs. Can you give us an idea what
Sure.
what somebody's looking at?
The pure online course, which I call our contentment and or compassing contentment program, we're pricing at about $350. That also includes a lifetime membership to our website, which is more like a library and resources, where we house about 5,000 pieces of information, the actual studies, TED Talks, NPR radio shows, things that are primary sources. Everything I do is backed up by the science and is perpetual learning. The new science comes out, I update that. So if you take the pure online course, you would have lifetime access to the website. There is an exam. As I said, each of these competencies, there's an exam at the end of those. You get to take the exam once. You get to review it, but it's not like you can go back and change your answers or anything like that. But it's for self-learning. It's to motivate yourself and to break it into pieces and present it in a way that I believe are going to be easier for the millennials to learn. Other people can use it too, obviously, but it's that short bursts of information, that ability that somebody can look at a smartphone and sit in an airport and watch a 3-minute video or 2-minute video on a particular narrow topic. And I cover all of the topics within those competencies. Much emphasis on oral communication, face-to-face communication, and how we interact and relate to each other, particularly as lawyers.
Got it. And on-site workshops?
Well, they would supplement the online. I can certainly do an online or in-person workshop for 2 or 3 hours a day, but I don't believe that the students, whether they're millennials or older people, baby boomers like myself, are going to absorb it and make lasting changes. I really believe to change attitudes and habits, it's a process, and that it should really be in conjunction with the online self-taught learning and more of a college course or curriculum. More of a version, yeah.
Is there any upcoming events that we should let our viewing audience know about?
Well, I am doing a series in Pittsburgh starting in the fall. As I mentioned, the competency program, which is running one session a month in September. I'm doing another workshop that's more of a teaser, and it's called Storytelling to Yes, where we're teaching lawyers how to use narrative forms and how to build their stories, which is what lawyers are doing in trials anyway. But I'm bringing it to negotiations. I'm saying, hey, you really as a lawyer, the concept of debating someone or convincing somebody by just argument isn't working. Doesn't happen lawyer to lawyer. So how are you building your story to be compelling to convince another lawyer or a client or a judge to move forward? So that's a Storytelling to Yes. That's a workshop, but I'm also have online components. I haven't fully developed that because the storytelling really is an in-person thing. That's much different than the competencies. And I'm also doing a workshop of improv for lawyers, some of the skills that improv comedies use. I've taken classes myself, and I'm co-teaching that one. And I'm also going to develop a course for oral presentations, public speaking. I've written on these extensively. I publish a column 6 times a year in the Pennsylvania Lawyer Journal called The Effective Lawyer. And I've written on these extensively on how to write a brief, how to do an oral presentation. So I will be having those workshops, but I view them as more of creating the awareness and giving a few basic skills. And if people can self-teach to move further along, that's great. But I believe that taking them in conjunction with an online course starts with a self-assessment, has a survey, has a test, is really the way that you're going to further the knowledge and change the habits and attributes and the attitudes of the people.
Robert, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I want to thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. You've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on our YouTube channel, CEO Money. Thanks for joining.